Zélie Adebola was a warrior born of loss. Her luminous white hair marked her as a diviner, a people once blessed by the gods with magic, now reduced to nothing more than despised outcasts. She fought not only with a staff in the sparring circle under Mama Agba's instruction, but also with a quiet rage born of a childhood destroyed when King Saran led the raid that killed all maji, including her mother. Ever since that day, Zélie had trained to survive the cruelty of a kingdom that feared what diviners once were. One morning, as she traded blows in the hot sun, her brother Tzain interrupted the session. His urgency was unmistakable. Zélie followed him home, where they found Baba, their father, trembling. Royal guards had come again, demanding exorbitant taxes placed only on diviner households. If they didn't pay, there would be consequences. Determined to help her family, Zélie decided to travel to the capital, Lagos, with Tzain, hoping to trade for enough coin to keep the guards at bay. In the royal palace of Orïsha, Princess Amari lived under the suffocating gaze of her mother and the iron rule of her father, King Saran. Her only warmth came from Binta, a diviner servant who was more friend than handmaid. When Binta disappeared, Amari followed whispers through the palace and found herself hiding in the throne room, where she witnessed a nightmare. Binta was forced to touch a scroll and instantly burst with magical energy. Without hesitation, King Saran stabbed her through the heart. Something broke inside Amari. She fled, stealing the scroll and escaping the palace. In the crowded marketplace of Lagos, fate collided as Amari ran into Zélie. Desperate and afraid, she begged for help. Zélie, despite her instincts, recognized the scroll's dangerous power and agreed. Guards soon surrounded them, but just in time, Tzain rode in on Naila, their giant lioness, and they fled the city. On the journey back, Zélie touched the scroll and magic pulsed through her veins. It awakened something deep within, perhaps the same reaper magic her mother once wielded. They returned to Mama Agba, who revealed herself to be a seer and confirmed what Zélie feared. She was destined to restore magic to the land. But before Zélie could decide her path, the guards came. Prince Inan, Amari's brother, led the assault. The city burned as the group barely escaped with their lives. They traveled toward Chandomblé, a sacred temple hidden away. Along the way, Zélie began having strange, vivid dreams, visions shared with Inan, whose own magic had been awakened. A streak of white appeared in his hair. He tried to suppress it, terrified of his father's wrath. At Chandomblé, they met Lacan, the last living Centauro. He told them of the sacred task before them. The scroll, the bone dagger, and the sunstone must be united in a sacred ritual on an island during the solstice to bring back magic. He awakened Zélie's magic fully through a grueling ceremony. But before they could leave, Inan and Admiral Kaya arrived and killed Lacan. The group escaped by destroying the bridge behind them. Inan felt his magic growing stronger and more dangerous. When Kaya discovered the truth, he lost control and killed her in fear. Their quest next led them into the desert, where an arena stood tall. Diviners were forced to fight to the death for the amusement of nobles. The sunstone was the prize. Zélie, Amari, and Tzain entered the brutal competition. They fought savagely, and though Amari was forced to kill, they triumphed. As they headed toward the coast, Inan caught up. In the clash, Tzain and Amari were captured by masked diviners and taken to a hidden encampment. Zélie and Inan, now wary allies, set out to rescue them. Through their connection, Inan experienced Zélie's memories, the trauma of the raid, the injustice suffered by her people. It shifted something inside him. In the jungle, Amari and Tzain were tortured until a young healer named Zu intervened. She believed their story and led the camp. Zélie and Inan arrived, and for a brief time, peace bloomed. Zu healed Tzain and pledged to help them. Zélie and Inan grew closer, even kissed. Though Tzain bristled with disapproval, but the tranquility shattered as royal guards stormed the camp. Zu died trying to protect them. Kwame, a fire maji, gave his life to save the others. Zélie was captured and tortured in a fortress with magicite, the metal that burned divinaires. Inan begged her to destroy the scroll to avoid further suffering. She refused. King Tzain carved the word maggot into her back. Inan, torn between his love for Zélie and fear of magic, secretly freed her and handed her to Tzain during a rescue led by Amari. They escaped and regrouped in Jimeta, a rogue coastal city where lawlessness reigned. Zélie, hiding her fading magic, sought help from Ruyen, a mercenary she had met at Zu's camp. He agreed to help, and together, they sailed to the island where the ritual would take place. At the temple, Zélie still couldn't access her power. Then Tzain and Inan arrived, with Baba as a hostage. To protect him, Zélie surrendered the artifacts. As they departed, Tzain fired an arrow into Baba's chest, killing him. Enraged and heartbroken, Zélie scrambled to reclaim the artifacts. Inan deceived her into using her magic to destroy the scroll. Tzain was proud, until he saw Inan's magic. In an instant, he disowned him. Amari confronted her father. Though she hesitated to strike him, he showed no mercy. Only when he slashed her back did she realize he would never change. With tears and fury, she killed him. Zélie, desperate to complete the ritual, turned to the gods. With the scroll gone, she poured her soul into an improvised invocation, calling on the ancestors and Baba's sacrifice. Magic surged. Light engulfed the temple. She collapsed. In a dreamscape, Zélie met her mother. Peace washed over her, and she longed to stay. But her mother told her it wasn't her time. She had more to do. Zélie awoke on Ruyen's ship, surrounded by her friends. When she asked if the ritual worked, Amari didn't speak. She held out her hand. Light shimmered. A white streak crowned her hair. Magic had returned to Orïsha. The sea roared as Ruyen's ship cut through the waves, bearing Zélie, Amari, Tzain, and the surviving divinaires away from the island. The ritual had worked. Magic, for so long silenced and buried, now breathed in the wind, glimmered in the moonlight, surged within their veins. But so too did uncertainty. What kind of world would Orïsha become now that the old power had awakened? Zélie's body ached, her magic raw and unstable. Every pulse of energy sent shudders through her bones. Still, she clutched the warmth of her mother's parting words, echoing in her heart like a lullaby. You have more to do. Back in the capital, chaos reigned. The death of King Tzain spread like wildfire. Power struggles erupted between noble houses, each clamoring for control. Rumors whispered of magic returning. Some celebrated, most feared. Inan, presumed dead by many, hid in the shadows of the city, tormented by guilt. He had betrayed Zélie, lost his father, and now bore magic he never asked for. He watched as Orïsha trembled at the edge of transformation and wondered if redemption was possible. On the ship, Amari took charge. Her resolve hardened with every passing lead. She had killed her father, seized destiny with her own bloodied hands. Now she would claim the throne, not just to rule, but to protect the new world being born. But her newfound power, the glowing streak in her hair, raised questions. Why had the magic chosen her? What did it mean? Zélie grappled with her own questions. Though the ritual had succeeded, her connection to the gods remained tenuous. She could sense her reaper magic, but it flickered, wild and uncontrollable. She sought out Rowan, whose carefree swagger belied a keen mind. Together, they deciphered old texts and whispered prayers, searching for answers. As they neared the shore of a small diviner village, untouched by the raid, they were met with awe. Children reached out to touch Zélie's hand, whispering her name like a myth. Elders bowed, but their reverence brought no peace. It weighed heavily, a reminder of all those she'd lost. Tzain, ever her anchor, helped rebuild. He taught children to fight, to defend themselves, but even he couldn't hide the unease he felt as magic spread. Some divinaires were emboldened, summoning fire in the streets, calling storms for sport. Without guidance, without unity, they risked turning power into peril. Amari proposed a gathering, a new monarchy formed not by bloodlines, but by oath. She invited leaders from across Orïsha, clan elders, warrior chiefs, maji, and even former nobles willing to see reason. The summit would be held at the ruins of Chandomblé, symbolic of both destruction and rebirth. But not all wished to rebuild. Inan, haunted by visions of a future drowned in blood, approached an old ally, General Jokoye, a ruthless commander loyal to King Saren's vision. She had rallied a faction of military loyalists, ready to crush the uprising. Together, they plotted to reclaim Orïsha. As the summit drew near, Zélie was plagued by dreams. Faces she didn't know, voices she couldn't place, all whispering warnings. The gods, she realized, were no longer silent, but they were angry. The ritual had not only restored magic, it had shaken the divine realm. Something ancient was waking. At the summit, tensions flared. Maji argued with nobles. Divinaires clashed with merchants who had profited from their suffering. It seemed the dream of unity would crumble. Then, Zélie stepped forward. She spoke of pain, of sacrifice, of a mother burned before her eyes. She called not for vengeance, but for vigilance, for a future protected by all, shared by all. Amari stood beside her. Orïsha belongs to everyone, she declared, and I will fight for it, not as a princess, but as a queen of blood and bone. Applause rippled. The summit reached a fragile consensus. A provisional council was formed. Peace, though brittle, bloomed. But peace never lasts. As the council made plans, a scream echoed from the cliffs. A watchman had spotted ships, warships, flying the black banners of Jokoye. Inan's army had arrived, and with them, a darkness far older than any had foreseen. As Orïsha stirred with the return of magic, its people stood at the edge of an uncertain dawn. Across the land, maji awakened to long-lost powers. Some wept in joy, others trembled with fear. But as the light surged back into the world, so too did shadows buried beneath time, forgotten by all but the gods. Zélie could feel it before she could name it. In the days following the ritual, she was haunted by a weight in the air, something pressing against her chest, unseen but undeniable. Her magic had returned, yes, but it was different, wilder, hungrier. When she reached for it, it didn't just answer, it roared, and it wasn't just hers. All around Orïsha, maji were beginning to experience strange effects. Fire that burned without control, visions that came unbidden, even earth-shaking tremors in places untouched by fault lines. Zélie, Tzain, Amari, and Rowan gathered in the ship's small cabin as the vessel neared the mainland once more. A hush settled over them. They had succeeded in their quest, but the cost lingered like smoke. Baba was gone, Zu was gone, Kwame was gone, Inan was missing, and Orïsha had changed. "Magic has returned," Amari said softly, her voice still unsure despite the light glowing faintly in her palm. But something else came with it. "I can feel it." Zélie nodded. "It's not just magic, it's something deeper, older." She didn't tell them about the dreams, about the whispers that crept in during sleep, calling her name from beneath the sea, about her mother's face, once serene in the dreamscape, now tight with warning. They docked in Ilan, a coastal city untouched by the palace's rule, but no longer safe from what stirred beneath the surface. Word of magic's return had already spread. Divinaires were being crowned as maji overnight, some rejoicing, others losing themselves in the chaos of newfound power. Fear grew quickly, and already some nobles were retaliating, forming militias to contain or kill the newly awakened. Worse, whispers of the dead rising in the night came from the mountain villages, shadows that slithered with no source, ghostly figures seen in the firelight, with empty eyes and mouths full of curses. Zélie realized then, she hadn't just awakened the power of the gods, she had broken a seal. One night, under a dark moon, she awoke in a cold sweat, the symbol of Oya seared into her mind. She left the inn without waking the others and went to the edge of the riverbank. There, the water stilled. Reflected in its surface was not her own face, but her mother's. Not as Zélie remembered her, warm and wise, but twisted in agony, eyes glowing with white fire. "They come," the reflection hissed. "The gods do not walk alone." Zélie fell backward, gasping. Behind her, Amari approached silently. Her white streaked hair shimmered in the moonlight. "You saw it, didn't you?" she said. "I have too." They spoke long into the night, sharing their dreams, their fears, the symbols that had begun appearing around them, on walls, in books, even burned into the soil of certain holy grounds. Amari confessed what she had seen after the ceremony. Her father's spirit, not vanquished but trapped, screaming in a mirror of obsidian. "He's not resting," she said, voice shaking. "None of them are. The dead aren't at peace." Back at the palace, Inan stood before the ruined throne. Though he had betrayed Zélie and helped destroy the scroll, something inside him had changed. The magic that had bloomed against his will still flickered beneath his skin, but he held it tightly in check. He had returned to Lagos to keep order, but the city no longer listened to princes. What remained of the court had splintered. Some demanded Inan renounce magic and lead a purge. Others wanted him dead. He had seen what his father could not. That magic was not merely power. It was memory. And memory, when disturbed, could unleash what should have stayed buried. Beneath Orïsha's surface, something ancient stirred. A force sealed away before the gods passed their gifts to humanity. It fed on death, on pain, on the screams of the fallen. And now, with magic returned, the veil between the living and the beyond had thinned. Inan had felt it in his dreams, a presence waiting in the dark, watching. He had thought it was his guilt. Now he knew better. Zélie's task had never been just to restore magic. She would have to defend it. Orïsha's final war was only beginning.